everyone. Good morning. Thanks for coming to see us and not Oprah. Lol. I'm taking that as an absolute compliment. For anyone, I know we've had a little intro, but anyone who doesn't know me, I am Managing Director of Scene Presents. We are a brand experience agency. We are looking after Netflix here this week, and I'm very pleased to introduce Sally. I'll let her introduce herself, but Sally's been my client for over 15 years, and it's taken me 15 years to get her on stage with me, so this is a big moment for both of us. But I'll let her give you a little bit of an intro of her.
Thank you. And firstly, thank you for asking me to do this. Thank you to Empower Cafe. Thank you for those of you who have come out at 9:30 on a Tuesday morning. But I'm Sally. I have been in the industry for over 20 years, which feels a long time. And I have done events in a number of capacities. So I started out agency side, which I think is really key for when you hold an in-house role. Learned a lot in that space. And then I've held various events roles in commercial radio, commercial television, and then for the last almost 10 years, I've had the privilege of building the EMEA events team at Netflix from the ground up, and all the different iterations that's been in. So, yeah.
So I could probably do about a 2-hour session with Sally on leadership because I've learned so much from her over the years. But
and you, to be fair.
Thank you. I knew you were going to say that. It's a lie. I think we'd like to start with the first question is, specifically in event marketing or experiential, what do you think it takes to be a great leader?
Yeah, I would say there's probably two distinct things I would advise. Like if you're leading internal teams at scale, I think it's key to figure out, as the leader, where you sit in the decision-making cycle. Because I sat for a number of years thinking I made decisions, which actually I didn't. I executed other people's decisions, and that's okay. I think it's just figuring out where you sit in the decision-making cycle. And then when you move into the decision-making territory, or even in my case today, when you are leading other people who are making decisions, you have to be really clear on the expectations and also set really good context so those people can make great decisions. And then I think specifically in the event space, especially in an internal role, you have to be centered on the why behind what you're doing. And I know that can be challenging when you're measured on execution and output, but it has to be rooted in the why. Why are we doing this? What is it going to achieve? What does success look like? Is this event the right thing for a campaign? And for me, there's nothing more successful for folks on my team or impactful when someone's like, I don't think this event is the right solution for a campaign, and I think we should invest over here instead. Or even from the agency side.
Yeah, I was saying on the other side of the table, actually growing an agency, it's really, really hard to say no. But it takes you a few years to realise the power of saying, no, this event isn't right for us, or this client isn't right for us.
Or if you haven't got the bandwidth or the resources in your agency, please say no. It's so much better to say no than damage the relationship.
So leading on from that, there's lots of misconceptions about our industry, but if you could pin it down to a few, what do you think are the kind of things that people think our industry is about and it isn't?
Well, you don't need me to do the flowers and canapes joke, but I think there is that reality of, folks not necessarily realising always, the power in what we do, and most importantly, the pressure, right? Like this world that we all operate in is really pressured because it's live and it's evolving and it can change. And I think we don't really talk about the fact that we all feel that we are only as good as our last event and what that really means to operate in that pressure every single day. And I don't know if that's always, known or realised. And I think additionally to that, and I don't know, we've spoken about it a little bit if other people feel it, but it used to feel, a decade ago, the event was the add-on to the campaign. That was kind of the bit that was thought about. I think there's a real shift. Like a lot of the time now, the event, the experience, the live moment is the campaign. Yeah. And I think we have to remember the power in that and our superpower, as the world becomes more digital, in that we create the in-person moments for brands, and that's really powerful.
And I think that even this week, there's a lot of people talking about experiential more. There's a few panels on it. Like the amount of events I go to, like marketing events, and there's not a single panel on experiential. When you're sitting in an experiential playground, and then no one's talking about it. But there are a few this week. I've seen a few. And
there's a shift. And I think there was the great Forbes article that talked about experience is going to be $1 trillion economy. You know, there is no greater time than now to be in the experience space.
We can all retire by next year. We're all going to be millionaires, apparently. Okay, so we've talked about specifically in event marketing and leading teams there, but you obviously lead teams for one of the biggest brands in the world. Where do you lead those teams? Where are they based? Again, remind me.
So in my current role, my team is spread across Europe. So I've got a team in London, Amsterdam, Berlin, Paris, Rome, Warsaw, Stockholm. You know, we really cover the whole region.
Yeah. So when I'm saying to you I'm stressed with my 40 people, I should probably pipe down. But with that and that responsibility, you've obviously had to take on board some leadership principles. If you could narrow it down to a few general leadership principles, no matter what industry you're in, what do you think they'd be?
Hire people that are better than you. Like, don't be afraid to hire someone that's going to shine. That makes you look great as a leader. I think hire people that have skills that you don't have. Hire people that think differently to you, are going to bring a different perspective to yours, are going to spot the things that you're not going to spot. I think if you're building a leadership team, as I have been doing the last kind of decade, you know, hire a real complementary set of sectors, skills, insights. I think that is one of the most key things that you can do. Because if your team shines, then that is a reflection of your leadership. And I think, you know, probably I didn't always see the power in that, especially when I was earlier in my leadership career. You know, that can kind of make you feel a little bit insecure.
Yeah.
And I think that is just my number one principle. And then I think, you know, my feeling about feedback. I'm fortunate enough to work in a really high feedback culture. And feedback is a gift. And I truly mean that. I am better leader as a result of some of the great feedback. Let me be clear. Actionable, accountable feedback is a gift. So what I mean by that is when the feedback is really clear, it's example-led, the person that's giving you the feedback is owning it, so they give it to you directly. It's not secondhand, because I've worked in environments of anonymous feedback, and that's just a total waste of time because you spend more time trying to figure out, it's really ambiguous because the person's trying to hide their identity. So you spend a bunch of time trying to figure out who said what, trying to figure out what they mean, when you could be spending that time actually fixing the thing that you've been set to work on. And actually getting clear, actionable feedback makes you so much better. And even if it stings, just say thank you, especially if it's from one of your team.
Yeah, because that's what you've taught me, is that feedback, sometimes you can think feedback's always feedback down. So like if you're a leader or you run teams, feedback to them. But actually, you taught me to accept feedback the other way and ask for it. I was once in a meeting with Sally, and at the end of it, she went, can I just borrow you for a minute? I was like, yeah, sure. And she was like, can I just ask you, how did I show up well in that meeting? And can you tell me how I didn't show up well in that meeting, something that I can improve for next time? And I was like, oh my God, like you're a big boss. Like, how am I going to... And you have to be really brave to ask for that. But I think the culture that you've created with your team means that feedback isn't scary. It's constant and all the time, so it feels like less of a big moment.
Yeah, and celebrate someone. When they've given you the feedback, say thank you so much, share it. Be like, person X gave me this really great, you know, my team is really, you know, diverse in terms of mix of languages. I got some great feedback that was like, I used too many British phrases and references and analogies, you know, and that's not helpful when people are, you know, speaking in their second language. So I think some of the best feedback I have had is from the people that I lead. And through their feedback, they help me be better at my job.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really think that the upward feedback is some of the most important that you can get.
So speaking of feedback, and we touched on it, we do work in a high pressure environment. Apparently experiential and events is like one of the top 5 most stressful jobs in the world. It's up there with a brain surgeon. Google it, it's a fact. So we are operating on rooftops, on beaches, craning in containers. Maybe I should actually give some context to one before I go into this. So Sally and I have been working together a long time, and our working relationship started in Cannes about 15 years ago as part of MIPCOM. And we've done a lot of firsts together. We brought ITV's House, which was revolutionary at the time. Like, it was a container structure.
And it was like shipping containers before shipping containers really became a thing that everyone did.
Yeah, and then obviously we brought Netflix to Cannes for the first time. So we've been working in high-pressured environments a long time. How do you motivate teams when it gets tough?
Yeah, and I think, it's hard, right? Because ultimately, when you're the leader of a team, the buck stops with you, right? You're ultimately accountable. And especially, like, as I said at the start, if you're not the person that is making the day-to-day decisions anymore or across the day-to-day execution, but the responsibility still sits with you, that pressure is really intense. But you have to filter that pressure, and I have to figure out, okay, what pressure sits with me, and then what am I disseminating to my leads, and then what are they disseminating to their team, and figuring out like what is stuff that I can just hold on to versus what's really actionable context that I need to set. I think if we take something like Cannes, where it's a long week, it's hot, it's many events a day, a lot of us are running spaces that are hospitality spaces and meeting spaces. It's a really intense week, and I think it is seeing people, recognizing them, appreciating them, showcasing them to leadership as well, and giving them the space to be seen and recognized. And on the flip, if things are going wrong, protecting them and being that buffer. I think those things are really key. And then when you're really in a crisis or a kind of live troubleshooting situation where you might need to be more actively involved, I think for me it's about being really intentional about what I need in the moment and why I need it and who's best placed to get me that information, and just being really clear with everybody as you're navigating the high pressure that we do, as you well know.
I know. Right, it works on the agency side as well, because one of my most fun conversations I've ever had to have in my career was ringing Sally to tell her that the containers had crashed on the way to Cannes.
This was in ITV days.
Been in a road traffic accident. I got a call, and then basically my team went into an absolute spiral. So then that's what I had to do. I had to take that and think, okay, well, what is the plan? And rather than sitting on it, is ringing you and being like, this is what we're going to do. This is the solution. And it's like taking that stress out of everyone else, and then me and you just kind of like figure it out.
And I had to do the same, right? We'd been working on this project for a year, and it was on its way to Cannes, and thankfully everything was okay. But in that moment, I had to then, absorb that stress, that worry. It's not helpful for me to distract the team and everyone to kind of spin into chaos. I had to sit, hold with that, think about the kind of like stakeholder management while the team could continue focused on delivery.
So we've talked about leading in event marketing, we've talked about leadership in general. It would be remiss of us not to talk about women in leadership. You obviously are very privileged at the moment to work in an agency that has extremely strong female leadership at the top. Not always the case. We always say that our industry is led by men, run by women. If you could cast your mind back to when you first started in the industry, if you could tell yourself a few things as a woman starting out, what would they be?
Yeah, the thing we haven't spoken about is my other big job. So I'm also a mum to two beautiful kids. I've got a 2-year-old daughter and a 6-year-old son. So I've been growing my family while I've been in this, leadership chapter of growing the team. And, that journey wasn't easy. So it's been a real mix of things. And, I think I thought 15 years ago, really candidly, that when the time came for me to have a family, this sector was not necessarily something that I could continue to do. I couldn't understand how you made both things work. And I don't have a secret sauce. I wish I did. If someone does, tell me. I think, I've got a lot of parents on the team, which I'm really proud about. And I think, the advice I say to them, especially when folks are returning from mat or parental leave, I have to just figure out, what balls to drop, because I am going to drop them. And I think once I made peace with the fact that I'm going to drop a few balls, that was a real kind of game changer for me. And I have my plastic ball, glass ball analogy. So, glass ball at work is, C-suite level strategy meeting, future planning for the year, I'm not dropping that ball. You know, a team meeting, a project meeting or a creative meeting that 2 of my leads are already in, they've got it covered, you know, that's a plastic ball that I can drop and let them do. You know, at home, school nativity, glass ball. You know, dropping my son at school every day, it's a plastic ball. You know, and I've just had to accept that to do it all, like I have to just figure out. And sometimes I'm doing that well, and sometimes I might have go, right, okay, I need to lean in a bit more over here. But on the whole, that's kind of the way in which I try and be the best version I can in both parts of my life, because otherwise you end up spreading yourself too thinly, and I'm just doing both things badly.
But I think another lesson in leadership is actually figuring out which are plastic and which are glass, because in my head, all my balls are glass. And I'm like trying to keep all the balls up.
You might just have to
time.
drop a few and see what happens.
That makes me feel super uncomfortable, but I'm going. If you could do it, I'll do it.
But it comes from experience, right? You know, one of the things I love about our sector, because I think you have to be passionate to be in it. Like, you've got to love what you do. One of the things I love about what we get to do, and I don't know if there's many professions, you learn something on every event that you do. You're still learning every single time. It's not a career that you can just tick, I've done it all. No matter if you've been doing it 5 years, 20 years, 30 years, you still learn something.
Yeah.
And that's how you then think about, okay, that I thought that was a glass ball. Afterwards, was it?
Yeah.
No, actually, that can now move into the plastic ball territory.
Yeah.
That would be the way to do it.
Never as bad as you think it's going to be.
No, but think about what you think your glass balls are, and after the situation, really push yourself to reflect and think, actually, was that a glass ball? Maybe not.
Mm. And your other top tip that makes me feel super uncomfortable. The power of...
Oh, sorry, yeah. No, because we had a chat about this before. So I think my other piece of advice that I wish I'd known, if I look back at like me 15 years ago, I just wish I'd known the power of silence. Like, sometimes it is so much better to say nothing, and in that silence it says everything. And sometimes you don't need to fill a space or a moment, or if something's uncomfortable, saying nothing. I think that is a real superpower. Letting the conversation, especially if you're, you know, interrogating a brief or making a hard decision about something, just sometimes sitting in the silence is okay.
Yeah. And I've witnessed it, and it's incredible what happens. If anyone ever says something to you that you're like, that wasn't great, or I don't agree with that. If your gut is to respond and defend it or attack it, and actually if you say nothing, it's amazing. It's so cringy what the person does. They can't bear it. They don't know what to do with themselves.
Louisa's seen me do it live. So.
I've seen, like, it's the biggest tip I've taken. It's quite hard to do it, but if you can do it, I encourage you to try.
And especially as a woman, you know, because you just want to fill that space. But the power of silence would be my top tip that wish I could go back and started doing earlier.
Yeah, I'm going to try it in my board meetings.
You can do it.
Okay, to round off, obviously the session is about leading from both sides of the table, so I did want to dig into a little bit around the agency-client partnership. I think if there's anyone here from agencies, we're all trying to find that secret sauce of, like, how do you create really powerful relationships with your brands so that you work together for years, you continue to get the briefs, you continue to develop. We've obviously... Is there a fly on my face?
No, you're good. The fringe is holding well.
The fringe is fringing. We worked together, I've touched on it 15 years. We've worked across ITV, we've worked across Netflix. I feel very proud that we've gone on this journey together and we're continuing to go on it. What, for you from brand side, makes a great agency partnership?
I would summarise it in 3 categories, which is trust, curiosity, accountability. So when we think about trust, it is that ultimate foundation that who you're working with is going to deliver. Because after everything we've said earlier, that pressure, that book stopping with you, you need to be working with partners that you know can deliver. And, you know, one of the great things you do to build that trust is, like, it's the work that you put in. Like, you're the MD of you've built a 40-plus person agency. But, when it's, almost time to open the roof, you are there with a broom, you are there cleaning the logos, because you care as much as I do. You're not kind of turning up at the last minute just to make sure everything's okay. You are deeply invested in making sure that our output is at the standard it needs to be because, and that goes into my second point of curiosity, and this would probably be my biggest tip, is you've really taken the time to understand the team, the expectations on the team, where we sit within the organisation, where my role sits, the expectations on my role, how decisions are made. Because it's not the same at every brand. Events teams, and if you're on the agency side, events teams can look really different across different organisations. And the expectations on those teams can be really different. I've worked in teams where really the expectation was to be A+ delivery. We don't want the thinking. And so that's okay, I think, but to understand and explain where the team sits. Whereas now the expectation is the thinking first, and then of course, the A+ execution. You've taken the time to ask the questions and understand the pressures that I'm under or the pressures that the team are under to then think how you can best support our projects. And I think if you're an agency and you've got 30 minutes with, brand, I understand that you want to use those 30 minutes to showcase everything about your brand and what you do and tell us everything. But very rarely are the questions the other way. And I think we can see all of that in the creds and the show reel, right? Use that time to understand and not assume you think you know what that client does and what the expectations are.
I've been in quite a few new business meetings where I've asked the question, I've said, tell me what you're worried about, what stresses you, like what are you looking for in an agency partner, what really annoys you about an agency partner? And they go, do you know what, no one's ever asked us that.
Yeah.
Just people come in and go, here's our shiny creds and this is my team structure, and they're like, no one ever asks us like, what are you looking for in an agency partnership and how can we show up in the best way for you? Because every brand is different. The way that I interact with you and Netflix is very different how I interact with another brand because we all work in different ways.
Yeah, and I think if you make that assumption, like it's going to undervalue like the opportunity that you've got with the brand. So lead with curiosity, use that time that you get in front of a brand to ask as many questions as possible so then you can think about what's your cut through, what's your in. And then my favourite one is accountability. And I think for me, lack of accountability really undoes the first one, which is trust. And I've been agency side. So when things go wrong, I understand how challenging it is to own it and admit it because, as we said earlier, we all feel like we're only as good as our last event, right? So then if you own that mess up, that could damage the relationship. We're not going to work with this client again. I guarantee you, quick accountability, quick action, quick solution for next time will do you so much more value in that relationship than telling the client the 15 reasons why this went wrong and the 5 things you did as the client to contribute to the mess up. That accountability is critical. And if something is happening, because it's the live world, things are going to go wrong. Think of it as one of the great bits of advice I got around making mistakes was when you make a mistake, the what you do next has the opportunity to turn this around.
Yeah.
And it's the same in the agency-client relationship. If you've made a mistake, you can absolutely use that as an opportunity to show that client why you're the agency for them going forwards. Because mistakes are going to happen. Yeah. But what you do next is the key piece.
I think there's also power in sorry. Like, I think sometimes you can jump to the solution as well. And if something goes wrong, I think I'm gutted. I'm devastated. I'm so sorry that this has happened. I will fix it. Leave it with me. We're going to do X, Y, Z. You can unpack the why and how and whatever in a wells and not wells afterwards. In the moment, it's just about getting it done. And I think the other bit that I try and use every client relationship with is honesty. My biggest advice is just try and be honest to a fault. Don't sit on things. Don't try and hide things. Don't lie. Like, you will get caught out, even if it's uncomfortable to say, this has happened to the containers or whatever. Like, be on. Don't try and sweep it under the carpet and then they turn up and you're like, why are they late? Or why are we behind? Or why hasn't this happened? Or why is that pink and not blue? It's like, own up to that and lead with honesty at all times, because then when something does go wrong, it stands you in good stead because you can have that conversation.
And it builds the trust, which is the first foundation that I highlighted. So yeah.
Well, speaking of honesty, thank you for being so honest with us today. I appreciate you exiting the roof and coming to be with us here. And thanks for everyone skipping Oprah. I know it was a really hard decision, but I feel like we absolutely top trumped that one.
Yeah. Thank you to you for having me. I think if I can leave you with 3 kind of final thoughts, I think if you're in an in-house role, the power of the why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Hire people that are better than you, and the power of silence. I think that is the few things that I would love to leave you with. But thank you so much for doing it. Thank you to Empower Cafe. It's been great to be here.
Have a great can, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.